Hey everyone, welcome to Jessair TV. Today we're talking about Retribution Paladin in the Midnight Alpha. What's changed, what's busted, and does it have the potential to be the best iteration yet? Let's talk. Before we begin, I want to give a big thank you to those of you who are watching. This is a different kind of video for me, but I figured I was long overdue in making this type of content. Let's get into it. Midnight is set to be a major transition point for World of Warcraft. Blizzard has taken a sweeping approach to redesign all 40 specializations with combat approachability in mind. While the changes vary by class, let's focus on Blizzard's approach for Retribution Paladin. Keep in mind, we are still in alpha, so changes can and will happen. You can bet on that. There are 4 major areas to touch on: Holy Power Generation, Opener Sequencing, Talent Tree Pathing and Choice, and Hero Talent Balance. The best place to start is Holy Power Generation, as it is right at the core of how Retribution plays. A key goal of these changes are the elimination of passive effects that generate Holy Power, including both Crusading Strikes and changing how Divine Resonance functions. Crusading Strikes has been eliminated entirely and is now replaced by a redesigned and updated Templar Strikes. The intention of this change is to remove an often difficult to track passive and replace it with a potentially punchy filler that generates Holy Power. This change by itself would be contentious if it went live with Retribution's current design. We currently rely on Crusading Strikes to let us use less of our time pressing Holy Power generators and instead focus on more impactful buttons like Hammer of Light, Judgment, Blade of Justice, and Templar's Verdict. With Midnight, our generators are looking to do less damage and our spenders more. This is a good trade-off. It should also make our decisions on what to use when we generate Holy Power impactful, and allow for our spenders to be more meaningful again. I thought I'd miss Crusading Strikes more, but I was pleasantly surprised at this change. On live, to correctly track Divine Resonance, a weak aura was required to show exactly when the additional judgment would hit the enemy target. This is no longer needed. Removing this is a healthy change, and it refocuses the gameplay on your core Holy Power generators and your moment-to-moment button presses. Divine Resonance has also been updated to only amplify the next 3 judgments casted by 100%. It's simple, and it provides a clear gameplay loop. Divine Toll may have some additional complexity with Divine Exaction, but the Divine Resonance change isn't fully implemented on Alpha yet, so we are unable to test it. I'm curious if it will use Hammer of Wrath instead. It could be a really fun interaction, and it could be a really impactful button during execute. Guess we'll find out. Both of these changes drive the player towards relying more on our core rotational Holy Power generators, including Crusader Strike, Blade of Justice, and Judgment. This change is incredibly positive and allows for a more accessible rotation. Because of the Divine Resonance and Crusading Strikes changes, our opener or launch sequence has changed dramatically. Gone are the days of using passive Holy Power generators. Every button press on our opener counts, and it directly drives our output. In addition, Divine Hammer has been partially baked into the Templar Hero Talent Tree and is no longer a button in our opener. It doesn't extend either. It should be really accessible. I'd argue that both of the recent versions of Divine Hammer have been successful additions to the Paladin kit, but I can see where it is polarizing to some players. It also benefited Templar much more than Herald. While we don't have sims and damage tuning is far from final, here's a concept of what our new opener would look like. We also don't know how Divine Toll will fully function during Avenging Wrath due to Judgment being changed to Hammer of Wrath, so it may be used differently in Midnight, but I think the new opener, it's straightforward and gets to the point. You don't have to worry about any maintenance buffs, and you can just get down to pushing your buttons and making an impact faster. I'm in favor of being able to get into cooldowns in a much faster manner. It only benefits the class when dealing with things like damage amps or vulnerability windows, many of which can be found in Manaforge Omega, including Forge Weaver Uraz, Nexus King Salhadar, and Dimensius. It's all over the place, and being able to get into cooldowns better is just such a positive change. If this encounter trend continues into Midnight, we'll be able to take full benefit of that. Talent pathing has also improved dramatically from the War Within. Currently on live, you choose either a single target path or an AoE path, and there isn't much of a decision to make. In addition, you had the competing choice of Execution Sentence versus Final Reckoning. The large majority of the time, Final Reckoning just fell short of Execution Sentence, and it was not as favored due to the significant reduction in single target damage. Even in places like Mythic Plus on higher keys, Execution Sentence was the go-to without question. Final Reckoning found some niche play in very heavy AoE encounters, or when you only had multiple targets, but that was very limited in scope. Now in Midnight, we have seen some major changes. I won't detail every change, but I will note some of the highlights. You no longer have to choose between Final Reckoning and Execution Sentence. Execution Sentence now does a little bit of everything. It does damage, and it has an AoE damage accumulator. This should provide a significant benefit to single target, AoE, and situations where you'd want to funnel into a primary target. As you've seen with both Arcane Mages and Demon Hunters, having Funnel as a niche is very positive and a welcome addition to any group. I'm excited that Ret's going to have this at Midnight as long as nothing changes. This should also provide a significant benefit in single target, AoE, and situations where you'd want to funnel into a primary target. You'll choose to path to Radiant Glory or Crusade, choosing a 30 seconds or 1 minute damage window. Either one works, it's just going to depend on what you want and what the fight needs. These changes are phenomenal and should allow for increased viability in all combat scenarios. Being able to be flexible with our talent choices will be a net positive for Midnight. I'm really excited just to pick Execution Sentence. Apex talents are cool. If taken, this should make Blade of Justice an especially high priority ability during Avenging Wrath, and it's likely to make it one of our strongest generators. You'll have better pathing to pick up AoE talents. You can comfortably switch out points in Zealot's Fervor, Heart of the Crusader, Empyrean Legacy, and even Crusade, maybe, to pick up AoE talents as needed. We still do have some friction with Boundless Judgment and the improved Judgment node. In PvE, Boundless Judgment was 100% pick rate for all of the War Within. While it no longer generates the additional holy power now, it still feels required to get the most out of our mastery. I like our mastery, it's good, but this talent seems to be a bit much. Empyrean Power is likely a dead talent. It has an incredibly low impact and will only proc off the new Crusader Templar Strike combo instead of happening passively. Depending on tuning, Crusader Strike might still end up being the lowest priority generator, so if that's the case, we're going to see less and less Empyrean Power procs. I still wish Empyrean Power procs would proc off of something different, but as of right now, this is what we have. Sanctify will be entirely dependent on the tuning of Divine Hammer and Consecration, but it's only going to ever be used by Templar. As of right now, it could be dead on arrival, but if Divine Hammer is very strong in AoE, it may be worth the pickup. I'll stress again that tuning is not final, and all of this is subject to change. On Alpha, things change on a weekly basis, so what we see today is definitely not going to be what we're going to see tomorrow. Hero talents are getting a slight boost of an additional 3 talent point nodes. Herald receives Endless Gleam, Walk into Light, and Born in Sunlight. These aren't particularly impactful, but I don't think they're supposed to be. They offer flavorful throughput, and Walk into the Light adds an extra boost to your opener, especially with the extra holy power generation. But with your openers being a little bit stronger, I don't anticipate it to be that impactful. Templar receives Divine Hammer, Light's Judicator, and a choice node of Divine Exaction and Seal of the Templar. Divine Hammer was adjusted from the live version, but still should provide an additional single target and AoE benefit from Divine Toll. Light's Judicator is copied from our current 2-piece in Manaforge Omega. It's just going to happen and then ideally provide more Hammer of Light usage, which we like to play with. Divine Exaction and Seal of the Templar might offer some choice, but the Templar's verdict damage will likely be too strong to ignore for anything that isn't pure AoE. Neither of these new columns are rotationally impactful, but they still offer meaningful throughput that doesn't add much complexity. Herald of the Sun still suffers from some of the same issues it did during the War Within. Damage tuning will likely happen, and things are going to change, but it would be negligent of me to not mention how behind it was through the entirety of last expansion. The War Within was rough to say the least for Herald of the Sun. It saw some play in Nerebar Palace very early, but was almost immediately dropped for Templar once some tuning changes were pushed through. As always, we live and die by tuning, so things are subject to change. Templar could be nerfed and Herald might be the only pick for Midnight, but the numbers are always the deciding factor. Herald of the Sun is also less fun. It has almost no rotational impact. We will be pressing Judgment anyways, so Blessing of Anshe will just happen, and the Divine Purpose proc after using Wake of Ashes pushes us towards the same ability we'd be using anyways. It's nice, but it's not amazing. It's no Hammer of Light. There can also be situations where we don't get the full benefit of Dawnlight. An enemy can die, go immune, have a phase transition, anything like that. And that's not great for our Dawnlights because they expire. And they're a substantial portion of our damage. Herald of the Sun and Templar have very similar damage profiles. Both are mostly flat with slight damage spikes during cooldowns. There's not a huge way to differentiate. Herald of the Sun and Templar currently have very similar damage profiles. Both are mostly flat with slight damage spikes during cooldowns. There's not much to distinguish the two. Lastly, Templar just looks cooler. Hammer of Light feels amazing to press, and Herald has nothing in the kit that mirrors that type of impact. I think the rule of cool is the thing here. If it's fun, if it looks cool, it's gonna be great. Herald, sadly, is not that, and it's really lacking something that integrates with our kit in a meaningful, impactful way. I also wanted to mention a few other things as well because they're worth noting. Shield of Vengeance is now gone and baked into Divine Protection if talented. Defensives have been reduced across the board for all classes, so this change is positive overall, and we're likely to not feel that too much. Other talents have also been removed that have had a non-existent pick rate or were no longer needed with the other more recent class changes. I'll briefly touch on the class talent tree changes, but most of them are low impact and not very important. As of now, we have enough points where you can pick what you want for almost any situation. Blessing of the Dawn feels like a protection paladin talent that made its way into the class tree. Can't speak for Holy, but being at 85% health the majority of the time in raid just sounds like an unnecessary risk. While it's probably fine in most scenarios if you're raiding in Mythic or at a high level in Mythic Plus, being 15% health down can just be too dangerous, even with some defensive benefit to others. We're somewhat bulky due to Divine Shield and other tools, but we don't have the higher HP to compensate for taking a talent like this. If we had a higher HP base like Death Knights or Fury Warriors, it might see some play, but I don't think, at least in its current iteration, it will be taken by Retribution. To get Healing Hands, you have to path through Cleanse Toxins. This seems slightly counterintuitive because the talent right above it affects Lay on Hands. Sometimes we might not want to take Cleanse Toxins, but to get this added benefit of Healing Hands, you're going to. The Vengeful Wrath changes are a nice quality of life. We won't have to track execute thresholds any longer, and having it just happen on any target that Judgment hits is a huge quality of life. We see a lot of talents in the Paladin class tree that just aren't impactful because the healing is too low or the utility is negligible. I find talents like Holy Ritual, at least the new version, impactful and meaningful, so when you use it, you're always going to feel that benefit. Blessing of Dusk is another great passive addition. There's not much to say about additional damage reduction, but it's good to have. Nobody likes being in danger, and having some additional damage reduction is good. I wanted to wrap this up with a few hot takes for fun. Spell warding should be available for all Paladin specializations. As long as protection has it, there's less and less of a reason to bring either a Retribution or Holy Paladin to raid. Protection can do anything that both Ret and Holy can do as far as utility offered. Let's see some parity here. Divine Spurs, instead of what it offers now, should offer the same pushback negation that Death Knights have with their Death's Advance and Death's Charger. It's a really good pickup, and I think Retribution should be able to sacrifice one talent point for picking that up. We should be able to transmog into a one-hander and shield combination just for flavor. It's only a visual change, just needs to be tweaked in the UI so we can select a one-hander and shield option. There's no reason why, and I think it'd look pretty cool. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic about Midnight from a class design perspective. Retribution has had some major quality of life changes across the board that make it more fun to play. It's a blast. If I would have created a wish list for Midnight, many of these changes would have been on it. Retribution maintains its accessible, fun rotation, and it still retains much of the nuance it had before. It's not as complex in some cases, but man, is it fun. Stay tuned for more alpha coverage in the near future. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Thanks for talking with me.